The air around the Slatten family feels heavier these days, charged with unspoken resentment, distance, and the kind of emotional fatigue that creeps into a family only after years of shared battles. When the network released the official trailer for 1,000 Sisters Season 8, fans expected laughter, chaos, and the familiar back and forth between Tammy and Amy. What they did not expect was the quiet heartbreak woven between the scenes. From the very first moment of the trailer, Tammy's face, smaller, more defined after her dramatic transformation, fills the screen. But her expression is conflicted, as though joy and sadness are wrestling behind her eyes. In a confessional, she says the words that land like a punch to the gut for longtime viewers. "It feels like we're drifting apart." It's a sentence that seems to echo across years of sisterhood, weight loss struggles, hospital visits, victories, and breakdowns. The Tammy who once depended on Amy for nearly everything, physical support, emotional support, motivation, now looks like someone trying to understand how the bond that kept her alive is slowly unraveling. "She used to be my best friend," she adds softly, as if admitting it out loud makes it more real. But this season, the distance isn't subtle. According to the trailer, the sisters had a major blowout, one so intense it's still shaking the family months later. The two appear to be moving in completely different directions, their lives no longer intertwining the way they once did. Tammy called Amy a deadbeat mom. Those words sting sharply, especially because Amy has spent years fighting to be the best mom she can to Gage, now 4, and little Glenn, just 3. She's carried guilt, exhaustion, and fear alongside diapers, tantrums, and responsibilities that motherhood brings. Being called something so cruel by the sister she once protected cuts deeper than any internet comment ever could. When the camera turns to Amy, her eyes are red, her voice shaking. "I can't handle her toxic ass no more," Amy whispers, tears sliding down her face. "I'm done." It's the sound of a woman at her breaking point, someone who's given everything she has and feels there's nothing left to offer. Yet life doesn't slow down. Not for weight loss triumphs. Not for grief. Not for broken relationships. Tammy is adjusting to a world that looks completely different from the one she lived in during her heaviest days. After weight loss surgery, after skin removal, after losing her husband Caleb Willingham in 2023, after transforming her entire life, she stands in front of the camera now and says, "Everything about me is smaller." Her body has changed, but the emotional landscape hasn't gotten easier. Back in June, she revealed she was engaged again, this time to Andrea Dalton, just 2 months after quietly going public with their relationship. For someone who once believed she might never live a normal life, the idea of planning a future with someone new is both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Across town, Amy is in a different chapter entirely. Cameras follow her through bridal shops as she searches for the perfect wedding dress, without Tammy by her side. She's picking venues, decorations, and details with a surprising confidence, yet a faint sadness stays glued to her expressions. "The wedding is in like 6 months, she explains, holding up a lace gown with trembling hands. Then she laughs, a small, quirky Amy laugh, and says, "It's really important for the venue to be haunted. That's the symbol of our love." And in true Amy Slatten fashion, she makes it happen. She marries Brian Laverne on Halloween, embracing her love for the spooky, strange, and sentimental. But something is missing at the altar, someone.
"Tammy,"
Amy says in a confessional, "My family, they don't want nothing to do with it. And neither does Queen Tam." Her voice breaks a little, revealing the truth behind the jokes. Older sisters Amanda and Misty appear on screen next. Their expressions tell the story before their words do.
Shock,
Sadness.
worry.
They never imagined Amy would plan a wedding without Tammy as her maid of honor, or even without Tammy there at all. The trailer continues, and suddenly the camera cuts to their brother, Chris Combs, who drops a bombshell. It has been 2 months since Tammy and Amy's explosive fight. 2 months of silence. 2 months of emotional tension weighing on everyone in the family. Throughout the trailer, Amy seems overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, hurt. Tammy looks confused and heartbroken, as though she's still trying to piece together how 1,000 small moments grew into one massive fracture. There's a lot of avoidance and frustration, Tammy admits. It feels like everything built up into a big explosion. The truth is, all the Slatten siblings have been through their own transformations. They've shed hundreds of pounds collectively, broken old habits, faced their demons, and rewritten their lives from the ground up. And yet, with all the physical weight gone, the emotional weight feels heavier than ever. But that's the messy beauty of their story. No matter how far they fall apart, there's always something pulling them back together. Because this isn't just a show about weight loss. It's about survival, family,
Love.
and the price of becoming a new person when the people around you are changing too. The tension between Tammy and Amy didn't form overnight. It was shaped quietly, layer by layer, through years of shared trauma, victories, failures, hopes, and heartbreaks. As the cameras continued to roll, it became clear that what the world saw in the trailer was only the surface. Beneath it was a slow-burning storm made of unspoken resentment, missed moments, and emotional exhaustion that had stretched both sisters thin. Amy had always believed that no matter what happened, she and Tammy would remain each other's safe place. She grew up thinking that sisterhood was the kind of bond that could never crack, even under the pressure of fame, health battles, marriages, and motherhood. But now, sitting alone in her small dining room, surrounded by half-finished wedding crafts, she felt a loneliness she hadn't felt since childhood. The kind that seeps in quietly, like cold creeping under a closed door. The memory of Tammy calling her a deadbeat mom replayed in her mind like a stubborn echo she couldn't silence. It wasn't just the insult. It was the disbelief that Tammy, her Tammy, could say something that cut so deeply. Amy had spent years trying her best for Gage and Glenn, learning motherhood without a guidebook, balancing her own healing with the responsibility of raising two young boys. The struggle wasn't always beautiful, but she had never once given less than everything she had. Tammy's frustration, however, came from a different place. From her point of view, the world had shifted around her too quickly. Engagements, surgeries, loss, and sudden fame had rearranged her life at a pace she wasn't prepared for. She had thought that after beating the odds, after losing weight, after getting her life back, after finding love again, everything else would fall into place. Instead, she found herself overwhelmed, constantly trying to keep up with change while also learning how to navigate a future she never imagined having. Her confessional moment, the one where she whispered that she felt like she and Amy were drifting apart, wasn't anger. It was fear. A fear she wasn't ready to admit to Amy, or even to herself. Tammy had always believed that no matter how chaotic her world became, her little sister would be there, steady as ever. But now Amy was planning a wedding, raising two kids, building a life that no longer revolved around Tammy's needs or moods or battles. Tammy didn't know how to exist in that new reality. Chris noticed the distance long before the rest of the family did. He had a way of reading the room that came from years of watching everyone else, the sibling peacemaker, the one who carried the family's unsaid worries like invisible weight on his shoulders. When he appeared in the trailer saying it had been about 2 months since their blowout, it wasn't just an update. It was a warning, the kind that says, something big is coming. Even Misty and Amanda, usually tough as nails, had been shaken by the growing divide. They whispered about it in quiet corners, in grocery store aisles, in parking lots, in back rooms, trying to piece together what went wrong and how to fix it before the damage became permanent. They knew how much both sisters had endured, how much love was still hiding beneath all the bitterness, but they also understood that hurt sometimes grows roots too deep to yank out cleanly. Meanwhile, the wedding planning moved forward without Tammy's presence. Cameras followed Amy as she sifted through white dresses and dark Halloween-themed decor, her smile stiffening every time someone asked, "Is Tammy coming?" She didn't have the heart to explain why she hadn't asked Tammy to be maid of honor. In truth, the decision ripped her apart, but how could she choose someone who wasn't speaking to her, who accused her of being a bad mother, who walked out of conversations only to explode later? She couldn't risk the chaos on her wedding day. And yet, every step she took toward the aisle felt heavier because Tammy wasn't beside her. Back across town, Tammy struggled too. She would lie awake next to her fiancé, Andrea, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had pushed too hard or spoken too harshly. Andrea would gently remind her that growth requires letting go of old habits, old triggers, old fears, but Tammy wasn't sure she knew how. Her life had been built on survival for so long that peace felt foreign, almost threatening. The cameras captured all of it, the silence, the distance, the aching longing both sisters refused to voice. What fans would eventually see wasn't just drama for television. It was the unraveling of a bond so deep that even the sisters themselves didn't fully understand its breaking point. But the most haunting part of all was this: neither of them was entirely wrong. And neither of them was entirely right. Both were hurting. Both were scared. And both believed the other had abandoned them first. The storm between them was only beginning. The days that followed were a quiet storm beneath the surface, the kind where nothing explodes outward, but everything trembles underneath. Tammy moved through her days with the stiffness of someone trying hard not to fall apart again. The trailer had forced her to face something she'd been dodging for months, that the distance between her and Amy wasn't a single sharp wound but 1,000 tiny cuts, each one ignored until they formed a scar she couldn't hide anymore. But while Tammy was trying to piece together her own emotions, Amy was unraveling in her own corner of the world. She moved through wedding paperwork, venue calls, and bridal fittings in a blur, telling herself she was focused, telling herself she was happy, but every time someone asked if Tammy was part of the planning, her throat tightened just a little more. Her answer was always the same: too calm, too practiced. She doesn't want nothing to do with it. But the truth showed in her eyes, in the way they glistened when she thought no one was looking. Even their older sisters, Misty and Amanda, could feel the tension spreading. They had dealt with plenty of Slatten drama over the years, but this felt different, heavier, more permanent. They sat together in Amanda's kitchen one humid Kentucky evening, the room dim except for the glow of the stove light, whispering like they were protecting something fragile. "I just can't believe she didn't ask Tammy to be maid of honor," Misty murmured, arms crossed like she was hugging herself. Amanda shook her head slowly. "I can. They've been drifting for a while now."
But still, that's Tammy.
That's her sister. It wasn't judgment. It was sadness. The kind that comes from watching something precious slip through your fingers. Meanwhile, Chris, always the bridge builder whether he wanted the job or not, found himself pulled right into the center. When he spoke to the camera, the exhaustion on his face said more than his words ever could. "It's been about 2 months since they had that big blow-up," he admitted, sighing. "They ain't talking, they ain't trying, and honestly, I don't know how to fix it anymore." And then, like pieces of a puzzle no one wanted to complete, all the small frustrations, forgotten promises, missed calls, and misunderstood comments piled into something that finally made sense. For Amy, it was the deadbeat mom comment, sharp, brutal, slicing right into the place she was already insecure. For Tammy, it was feeling replaced, left behind, like she'd lost her sister long before the fight ever happened. But beneath all of the chaos, both women were still carrying the weight, literal and emotional, of the journeys that had shaped them. Their bodies were changing. Their lives were changing. And change, even the good kind, could tear people apart if they weren't careful. Tammy felt smaller, physically and emotionally, in ways she didn't quite know how to express. Her engagement to Andrea had brought a burst of happiness, but even love didn't erase the grief of Caleb's death. Sometimes she still woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there anymore. Amy, on the other hand, was barreling toward a future she'd dreamed of: marriage, independence, a fresh start. But every milestone made her feel just a little more alone without her sister beside her. Even the haunted wedding venue, as quirky and perfectly Amy as it was, felt incomplete when she imagined walking down the aisle without Tammy watching from the front row. The cameras captured it all: the silences, the awkward pauses, the half-finished sentences that said more than words could. It wasn't just drama for TV. It was a story of 2 women who had survived addiction, grief, Health scares, surgeries, motherhood, breakups, life changes, but somehow not each other. And yet, even in the mess, there was a quiet sense that their story wasn't over. Sisterhood didn't break cleanly. It frayed, tangled, stretched, but rarely snapped forever. But for now, the tension stayed. Heavy, unanswered, growing. The days blurred together for Amy and Tammy, each moving through routines that were now heavier than before. Amy was consumed by wedding plans, scrolling through bridal websites, comparing haunted venues, envisioning herself walking down a shadowed aisle while Brian waited at the end, his grin impossible to miss. But even as she imagined the perfect ceremony, she felt the invisible absence of her sister's presence. Every invitation drafted, every guest list finalized, reminded her that Tammy wasn't part of the celebration she had once hoped to share with her. Tammy, meanwhile, was exploring her new life in ways she hadn't allowed herself to before. Skin removal surgery had left her feeling reborn, lighter not just in body, but in spirit. Andrea Dalton's love was new, fresh, and intoxicating, giving her confidence she hadn't realized she'd lost. Yet even as she laughed, brushed on makeup, and planned dinner dates with Andrea, a small part of her remained tethered to Amy. That tether pulled and stretched with every social media post, every trailer clip, every whispered family conversation about Amy's wedding. It hurt, this invisible line connecting them, stretched too thin to hold weight, but impossible to cut entirely. Chris tried again, leaning into the role he hated but couldn't escape. Families are supposed to stay together, he said to both sisters separately, hoping one would listen, hoping one would bend. But Amy, eyes red from yet another night of planning and silent crying, refused to budge. "I'm not going to sit here and take baloney when I don't like baloney," she told him sharply, voice cracking but firm. Tammy responded in kind, unwilling to speak without a defense. "I'd do the same if she just kept her mouth shut," she snapped. The explosion that had driven them apart was not a single event. It was countless tiny moments, frustrations, misunderstandings, sharp words flung in anger, feelings of neglect, that accumulated until one day the dam broke, leaving both sisters submerged in resentment, hurt, and regret. The trailer had shown the audience only glimpses, Tammy's tears as she confessed feelings of isolation, Amy's trembling hands while admitting she was done with the toxicity. But the cameras behind the scenes caught what no teaser could fully reveal, the raw human messiness of sisterhood, the kind of love that refused to die quietly even when it was suffocating both women. Tammy's daily life had transformed in other ways too. Weight loss had opened doors she hadn't dared knock on before. She could walk, climb stairs, and feel unburdened by the physical chains that had previously constrained her. Andrea's hand in hers during these new adventures became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that life could still be kind even when family bonds frayed. Amy's world, conversely, was a whirlwind of preparation and planning, the haunted wedding venue a metaphor for her life, beautiful, eerie, and a little chaotic. Her sons, Gage and Glenn, were constant companions, both grounding her and reminding her that motherhood didn't pause for heartbreak or family drama. Even as Tammy's absence was keenly felt, Amy found herself growing in unexpected ways, discovering reservoirs of patience, strength, and creativity she hadn't known she possessed. Yet, even in this growth, tension lingered like a shadow neither sister could shake. Every text unanswered, every missed call, every pointed comment from the family was a reminder of what had been lost. Misty and Amanda, standing quietly at the edges of these storms, worried not just about the present, but about the potential for permanent fracture. They remembered the days before the feud, when laughter echoed through living rooms, when secrets were shared in whispers and not knives of sarcasm. And so life went on, split between worlds of growth and pain, love and resentment, hope and doubt. Amy and Tammy had both changed drastically over the past year, yet the sisters who once promised forever to each other were now learning that love alone wasn't always enough to mend the deepest wounds. Amy awoke one morning to sunlight spilling across the bedroom floor, warm and unrelenting. The quiet was almost unnatural after the chaos of recent months, The whirlwind of wedding planning, the tears, the arguments, the relentless back and forth with Tammy. For a moment, she let herself breathe, feeling the weight of the past few months slowly lift from her chest. Gage and Glenn were asleep, the house peaceful, and she felt a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief for the calm, sorrow for the distance between her and her sister. She moved through her day mechanically at first, checking emails, responding to RSVPs, confirming vendors. Yet even as she meticulously planned her Halloween wedding with Brian, her thoughts wandered to Tammy. She remembered their childhood, the shared bedrooms, the secrets whispered under covers, the fights that ended with laughter, the tears that had always been soothed with hugs and promises. Now, those memories felt like relics from another life, a life where the bond between sisters was unshakable. Tammy, on the other hand, was experiencing her own awakening. She rolled in her wheelchair toward the window, catching the early light glinting off her newly lost pounds. She flexed her arms and marveled at the strength she now felt coursing through her body. Andrea's smile greeted her from the kitchen, a comforting, steady presence in the midst of the upheaval caused by her fractured relationship with Amy. Yet even Andrea couldn't fill the gap left by her sister's absence, the void that lingered at every birthday, every holiday, every trivial family conversation. Chris, ever the mediator, continued to try to bridge the divide. "It's not too late to make amends," he said, voice gentle but firm, as he addressed both sisters at separate times. "You've survived so much together. Don't let pride undo all that history." But both Amy and Tammy had their walls up, their defenses sharpened by months of accumulated frustration. Neither wanted to be the first to lower their guard, to risk vulnerability only to be met with disappointment. Amy's wedding preparations became a lifeline. Each detail she curated, Brian's favorite flowers, a haunted house decked in cobwebs and jack-o'-lanterns, a playlist that captured both whimsy and romance, was a reclamation of control in a world that often felt chaotic. She immersed herself in creativity and planning, finding joy in the ability to shape a moment that was hers and Brian's alone. And yet, every decision made without Tammy's input carried an undercurrent of sadness, a silent acknowledgement that something fundamental had changed. Tammy, too, was reclaiming her narrative. She experimented with new styles, learned how to navigate life post-surgery, and embraced her burgeoning independence. Andrea's unwavering support allowed Tammy to see herself as more than just a sister or a weight loss story. She was a woman discovering what it meant to be truly alive. But despite the joy in these new chapters, the memory of what she had lost gnawed at her, a persistent shadow that refused to fade. Even the smallest moments carried weight. A text left unanswered, a voicemail ignored, a shared memory revisited online. All of it reminded Amy and Tammy of what had been. Misty and Amanda watched with growing concern, knowing the rift extended far beyond the immediate drama of a wedding. It was a fracture in the foundation of a family built on shared struggles, shared victories, and shared pain. Yet amidst the tension, there were glimmers of hope. Amy occasionally caught herself smiling at memories of Tammy's laughter or thinking fondly of past adventures. Tammy, too, found moments where the desire to reconcile softened her anger, fleetingly. These moments, small as they were, hinted at the possibility that the bond they shared might not be irreparably broken. But the path forward would be fraught, requiring patience, humility, and perhaps the courage to confront truths neither sister wanted to fully acknowledge. And so, life continued, a delicate balancing act between celebration and heartache, growth and regret, joy and longing. Amy and Tammy's stories intertwined even in separation, each shaping the other's path, even as distance stretched between them. The days blurred into weeks as Amy and Tammy navigated their parallel worlds. Amy's wedding loomed closer, and with every decision she made, the absence of her sister's voice became more pronounced. She wandered through the haunted venue, imagining the flickering candlelight reflecting off the carved pumpkins, the shadows dancing across the walls, and the laughter of friends and family mingling with the whispers of the past. It was the kind of wedding Amy had always envisioned, spooky, magical, and unmistakably hers. But it was incomplete. Every joyous choice was tinged with the melancholy of Tammy's absence. Tammy, meanwhile, embraced the quiet strength she had cultivated in the months following her skin removal surgery. Life had changed dramatically. Tasks that once seemed impossible were now simple routines. Rolling herself through the grocery store without relying on a scooter, enjoying long walks with Andrea, savoring the feeling of independence she had fought so hard to achieve. It was exhilarating. Yet despite the thrill of newfound freedom, a part of her longed for the bond she once shared with Amy, the sister who had been both a rival and a confidant. The family watched with bated breath as the countdown to Amy's wedding drew nearer. Misty, Amanda, and Chris struggled to remain neutral, attempting to mediate the subtle tensions that arose whenever Tammy and Amy were in proximity. The holiday dinners became exercises in diplomacy, each interaction a careful dance of avoiding triggers while still participating in family life. Even Gage and Glenn seemed to sense the undercurrent of tension, their young eyes observing every word, every gesture, absorbing a world complicated far beyond their years. Amy's wedding planning became a therapeutic process, a way to reclaim agency in a life that had often felt dictated by circumstance. She scoured bridal shops for the perfect dress, seeking something that felt both whimsical and elegant. Each gown was tried on, discarded, and reconsidered, the process a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Brian remained by her side, steadfast and supportive, reminding her that even without Tammy's involvement, this day was about them, about love, about the family they were building together. Tammy, observing from a distance, felt conflicting emotions. Pride in Amy's vision, frustration at being excluded, sadness at the growing distance between them. It was a cocktail of feelings she struggled to navigate. Andrea's gentle presence helped her channel these emotions into self-care and reflection rather than resentment. Yet, in the quiet moments, Tammy would find herself staring at old photos, remembering laughter and shared secrets, and wondering if it was too late to rebuild what had been lost. Chris became a quiet force in the background, reminding both sisters of the shared history that still bound them. "You can't rewrite the past, but you can shape the future," he said during one tense conversation. "All the fights, all the arguments, they don't have to define your relationship. You two have built something stronger than that." His words lingered long after the conversation ended, resonating in moments of introspection, nudging both sisters toward the realization that reconciliation was possible, though not guaranteed. Amy, too, found herself reflecting. Amid the whirlwind of preparations, she realized that no amount of decorations, no haunted venue, no perfectly chosen flowers could replace the connection she craved with Tammy. Her tears came quietly one night, unobserved by anyone, as she admitted to herself that the rift between them was hurting more than she had allowed herself to acknowledge. She began to draft a letter, hesitant yet sincere, expressing her feelings, her regrets, and her hope for healing. It was a small, fragile step, but it was a start. Tammy, on her side, wrestled with similar thoughts. Andrea noticed the quiet moments when Tammy stared off into space, lost in memory, and encouraged her to reach out, to take a step toward healing. The path forward was uncertain, full of potential setbacks and missteps, but even contemplating it was a sign of growth. The sisters' journey, through weight loss, love, loss, and personal transformation, had taught them resilience, and perhaps now it could teach them forgiveness as well. The world around them continued to move, events unfolding with relentless momentum. The wedding approached, the family gathered, and the tension remained palpable, yet beneath it all, a fragile thread of hope persisted. Amy and Tammy were on the cusp of major life events: marriage, family growth, new beginnings, and despite the distance between them, the bonds of sisterhood remained a subtle, invisible force, waiting for the moment when it might be reknit into something stronger than before. The morning of Amy's wedding arrived like a storm wrapped in sunshine, both chaotic and beautiful. The house buzzed with frantic energy as last-minute preparations collided with nerves and excitement. Amy's dress hung in the doorway, a masterpiece of lace and delicate stitching that shimmered in the soft light. Gage and Glenn ran circles around the living room, their laughter bouncing off the walls, unaware of the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Amy took a deep breath, smoothing the fabric of her gown. She looked at her reflection and felt a strange combination of joy and sorrow. This day was supposed to be shared with her sister, the one person who had been with her through every low, every tear, every triumph. But Tammy was nowhere to be seen. Her absence left a hollow space, one that no amount of decoration, no matter how haunted or grand, could fill. Meanwhile, Tammy was preparing herself in a quiet, sunlit room with Andrea by her side. The couple shared a soft, private moment amidst the whirlwind of Amy's big day. Andrea's presence was grounding, a reminder that life had given her love and happiness despite past hardships. Yet even as she smiled, Tammy felt a twinge of longing. The family she had always leaned on, her sister Amy, was just a few streets away, and the weight of unspoken words pressed on her chest. Back at the wedding venue, Amy's nerves threatened to unravel her composure. The candles flickered, casting elongated shadows along the haunted hall, while the wind rattled the old windows, adding an eerie rhythm to the day. Brian noticed the tension and gently squeezed her hand. "This is your day, Amy. Focus on us. Focus on love," he whispered. Amy nodded, trying to let go, but her heart couldn't ignore the void left by Tammy's absence. The family arrived, each member carrying their own mix of excitement and apprehension. Misty and Amanda whispered in corners, exchanging worried glances as they watched Amy move through the crowd. Chris lingered nearby, a silent guardian of balance, hoping that despite the estrangement, some semblance of unity could be salvaged. He understood the history, the fights, the jealousy, the love, and knew the sisters' bond, though fragile, was still capable of repair. Amy walked down the dimly lit aisle, her sons trailing close behind, their small hands clutching hers as if to anchor her to the present. She glimpsed the guests' faces, all smiles and anticipation, but her eyes searched in vain for Tammy. The absence of her sister, her confidant, transformed what should have been a moment of pure joy into a bittersweet symphony of love and loss. Outside, Tammy watched from a distance, her heart caught between pride and regret. She wanted to be there, to support Amy, to witness the culmination of years of struggle and growth. But the weight of their last argument and the unresolved tension anchored her feet. Andrea held her hand, a quiet support, reminding her that some battles required patience and timing. Tammy exhaled, her thoughts swirling with memories of shared laughter, childhood adventures, and nights spent whispering secrets under the blanket of darkness. Could they truly bridge this chasm? Inside the venue, Amy's voice trembled as she recited her vows, the words both a declaration of love and a catharsis for her soul. Brian's eyes shimmered with emotion, and for a moment, the ghosts of past disagreements, of lost sisterly closeness, seemed to fade. This was love in its purest form, complicated, messy, human, and yet beautiful. The room felt suspended in time, the outside world unable to intrude upon this bubble of emotion. After the ceremony, the reception was a whirlwind of laughter, music, and dancing. Amy's heart swelled seeing her sons giggle as they twirled in their tiny tuxedos. She clutched Brian's hand tightly, feeling the warmth of family and friends surrounding them. And yet, a quiet ache lingered. Tammy's chair remained empty, a silent testament to fractured bonds. Later, as night fell and the guests began to depart, Amy stole a moment alone on the balcony. The cool breeze brushed her face, carrying with it the faint scent of autumn leaves and distant bonfires. She allowed herself to reflect, not on the wedding, not on the celebration, but on what had been lost. She understood that life was a series of choices, some joyous, some painful, and the path to reconciliation was rarely linear. Meanwhile, Tammy and Andrea returned home, the night quiet around them. Tammy sat by the window, looking at the stars and imagining Amy's laughter echoing through the haunted venue. Andrea placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You'll find your way back," she said softly. Tammy nodded, realizing that growth was not only physical but emotional. The journey toward healing was ongoing, and the first step was acknowledging the desire to reconnect. Both sisters, in their separate worlds, ended the day with hope, a fragile, shimmering hope that no matter the distance, the bond of sisterhood, though strained, could survive. The events of the day, the celebration of love, the weight of absence, all became part of the tapestry that would define the next chapter of their lives. The morning after the wedding dawned quiet and reflective. Amy awoke to the soft light filtering through the drapes of her bedroom, the house still lingering in the sweet remnants of celebration. Brian slept soundly beside her, the rise and fall of his chest a steady reminder that life had indeed moved forward. For the first time in months, Amy felt a rare combination of calm and anticipation. She had stepped into a new chapter, yet the weight of her fractured relationship with Tammy lingered in the corners of her mind. Downstairs, Gage and Glenn were already awake, their small feet pattering against the wooden floors. They burst into the kitchen, eager to recount the night before, their voices a mix of excitement and awe. Amy knelt to embrace them, inhaling the faint scent of their hair, the familiar comfort of motherly routine. These were her constants, the parts of her life she could control and nurture, despite the chaos and heartbreak elsewhere. Tammy, on the other hand, was at her apartment with Andrea, starting her day with a slow cup of coffee and quiet reflection. The aftermath of the wedding left her feeling a swirl of emotions: happiness for her sister, regret over her absence, and a persistent, gnawing longing to reconcile. Andrea noticed the tension in Tammy's expression and gently suggested, "Maybe it's time to reach out." A simple text, even a small gesture, could start the healing. Tammy hesitated, her pride and fear of rejection creating a barrier, but she nodded. Somewhere deep down, she knew Andrea was right. Meanwhile, Amy navigated the aftermath of her wedding, coordinating thank-you notes, returning calls, and organizing photographs. The excitement of the big day slowly transitioned into a quieter reality, one where the echoes of her sister's absence were louder than ever. Misty and Amanda stopped by to check in, their concern genuine. They offered a mix of support and gentle prodding, hoping to bridge the gap between Amy and Tammy. "She's still your sister," Misty reminded her softly. "No matter what happened, family finds a way." Amy appreciated the sentiment, yet the wounds from the recent months were raw, and forgiveness was not instantaneous. Over the next few days, Amy immersed herself in her routine, balancing the care of Gage and Glenn with her personal projects. She set up a dedicated space in her home for meditation, journaling, and planning. Each morning, she took deliberate steps towards self-care, focusing on the emotional and physical growth that had been months in the making. Brian supported her at every turn, offering encouragement and love, but also knowing that some battles could not be solved externally, they had to be faced internally. Tammy, meanwhile, began reflecting on her own journey. The weight loss and skin removal surgery had given her newfound freedom, but the emotional scars lingered. She revisited old photographs, remembering the laughter and mischief she had shared with Amy as children. The realization struck her: time was slipping away, and she could not allow pride to prolong the rift between them. For the first time, Tammy felt a genuine, urgent desire to reach out. One evening, after the house had settled into a quiet hum, Tammy picked up her phone. The cursor hovered over Amy's number, her thumb hesitating over the send button. Andrea watched silently, offering a reassuring smile. Finally, Tammy exhaled and typed a simple message: "I miss you.
Can we talk?"
She stared at the screen, heart pounding, and then pressed send. In that instant, a bridge was tentatively extended across the chasm that had formed between them. Amy received the message the following morning while helping Gage and Glenn with breakfast. Her eyes lingered on the text, emotions swirling, anger, relief, hope, and fear all at once. She paused, considered her response carefully, and typed, "I miss you too. Let's talk soon." The reply was simple, but it carried the weight of years, of shared struggles, and of a bond that, though strained, had never truly broken. The day of their conversation arrived. Tammy and Amy met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe that neither had visited before. The air between them was taut with tension, unspoken words hanging heavily. Tammy reached out first, taking Amy's hand gently. "I know I hurt you," she began, her voice soft but sincere. "I never wanted things to get this far." Amy's eyes glistened with tears, the vulnerability of the moment breaking down walls she hadn't realized she was still holding up. "I know," Amy replied, her voice trembling. "I wasn't perfect either. But I want us to try for the kids, for ourselves, for the bond we've always had." They sat there, hands intertwined, talking through the long months of resentment, misunderstandings, and pain. Each confession peeled away layers of anger, making space for empathy and forgiveness. By the end of their conversation, a tentative understanding had emerged. The sisters left the cafe together, a small, fragile smile shared between them. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but the first steps toward healing had been taken. For Amy and Tammy, life was a mosaic of growth, forgiveness, and the enduring power of sisterhood. And while the past could not be erased, it could inform the choices they made moving forward, choices rooted in love, understanding, and a shared history that was too precious to abandon. In the weeks that followed, life for the Slatten sisters began to shift subtly yet profoundly. Amy and Tammy's tentative reconciliation allowed small gestures of sisterly support to return, though old patterns still lurked in the corners of their interactions. Amy spent her mornings balancing wedding planning, motherhood, and personal reflection, while Tammy focused on her health, Andrea, and her emerging independence. Their paths had diverged over the past months, yet the bridges they were rebuilding reminded them that family, however fractured, could always find its way back. Amy's pregnancy added a new layer of complexity and joy. The news, once shared privately with close family, now carried a ripple of excitement and responsibility. Gage and Glenn were ecstatic about having another sibling, their imagination already painting pictures of future playdates and adventures. Brian stood steadfastly by Amy, offering unwavering support and gentle guidance, understanding that the next months would be an intricate balance of joy, challenges, and careful planning. Amy herself felt a surge of empowerment. For years, she had been managing her life reactively, but now, with a wedding, a pregnancy, and the reconciliation with Tammy, she was stepping into a proactive, intentional version of herself. Tammy, meanwhile, had begun exploring a different kind of healing. Her recent weight loss and skin removal surgery had opened doors to experiences that had previously felt unattainable. She started practicing more outdoor activities, traveling with Andrea, and discovering hobbies she had long abandoned. Yet, the emotional toll of her estrangement from Amy reminded her that self-improvement extended beyond the physical. One quiet evening, while watching the sunset with Andrea, she whispered, "I want to be fully present, not just for me, but for my family, my sister, even if it takes patience." Andrea held her hand, nodding, a quiet reminder that love, in all its forms, could be both a comfort and a catalyst. The sisters' renewed connection, though tentative, began to influence their extended family. Misty and Amanda noted the subtle changes in their interactions, more genuine smiles, less biting commentary, and the beginnings of a shared understanding. Chris, ever the mediator, observed quietly, hopeful that the worst of the conflict was behind them. Even small acts, like sharing a meal or laughing over a private joke, became symbolic victories, evidence that the bond could survive hardship if nurtured carefully. As Amy's pregnancy progressed, the sisters found themselves revisiting their childhood memories. Late-night conversations over tea turned into confessions of fear, regrets, and dreams once abandoned. "I was always afraid of letting you down," Tammy admitted one evening, her eyes misting. "And I guess I thought distance would protect me from hurt." Amy reached across the table, squeezing her sister's hand. "I felt the same way. But we can't grow if we stay apart." These moments, small but significant, laid the foundation for a deeper, more resilient sisterhood. The upcoming wedding, initially a source of tension, became a focal point for collaboration. Tammy offered to help with smaller tasks, advice on decorations, planning for children's activities, and coordinating certain logistical elements. Her involvement was cautious at first, each step forward tested and measured, yet it symbolized a willingness to bridge the gaps that had widened over the previous months. Amy, for her part, embraced the support with cautious optimism, aware that old habits and conflicts could resurface at any moment, but willing to try. One particularly poignant day, the sisters visited a local nursery to select flowers for the wedding. Surrounded by blooms and the scent of fresh soil, they reminisced about childhood summers, their shared laughter echoing as they carefully chose colors and arrangements. For a few hours, the weight of conflict lifted, replaced by the simplicity of shared experiences, the essence of sisterhood distilled into ordinary moments made extraordinary by attention and intention. Meanwhile, the cameras followed both sisters as they navigated these personal milestones. Viewers witnessed Tammy's continued commitment to health and Andrea, Amy's careful preparation for her growing family, and the delicate, sometimes tense dance of reconciliation. Emotional confessions, candid laughter, and subtle gestures painted a portrait of women growing in parallel, yet finding intersections in moments of vulnerability and trust. As the season progressed, it became clear that the Slatten sisters' journey was no longer solely about weight loss or external milestones. It was about emotional resilience, forgiveness, and the painstaking work of rebuilding connections fractured by pride, miscommunication, and past grievances. Each interaction, whether tense or tender, served as a testament to the complexity of sibling relationships and the enduring power of shared history. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with both preparation and reflection. Amy's energy was a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Her pregnancy required careful planning, while Tammy's involvement, though cautious, reminded both sisters of the bond they still shared. The tension had not vanished, but it had transformed, less a chasm and more a landscape to navigate together, slowly but surely. The days leading up to Amy's Halloween wedding were a whirlwind of activity, emotion, and reflection. The house buzzed with anticipation. Gage and Glenn darted around, rehearsing their roles as little ring-bearers in front of a mirror, while Amy meticulously adjusted table settings and coordinated with the venue staff. Brian was steadfastly at her side, a quiet anchor in the eye of the storm. His support was not just logistical, but emotional. He offered a steady hand when nerves spiked and a comforting smile when frustration flared. Tammy, though not involved in every detail, had carved out her own meaningful role. She helped with smaller tasks that allowed her to contribute without feeling overwhelmed, like supervising children's activities and sharing tips for maintaining a healthy routine during the wedding chaos. Though tensions occasionally flared, old habits die hard. The sisters had developed a rhythm. Moments of laughter emerged alongside brief twinges of frustration, but every exchange was now underscored by a willingness to listen and compromise. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp and clear, with autumn leaves dancing across the lawn as the sun spilled golden light over Dixon, Kentucky. Amy woke early, stretching and taking a moment to absorb the gravity of the day. She glanced at her calendar, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, from years of struggle with weight, heartbreak, and familial tension, to this moment of hope, love, and resilience. Her pregnancy added a quiet hum of wonder, a reminder that life could grow even in the aftermath of chaos. Brian arrived to help her with final preparations, holding a bouquet of flowers Tammy had handpicked in advance. He smiled, saying, "Everything looks perfect, just like you imagined." Amy laughed, feeling a combination of nervous energy and exhilaration. "Haunted, don't forget haunted," she reminded him, giving a playful glance at the gothic touches she had insisted upon. Together, they walked through the final checklist, ensuring every candle flickered correctly and every pumpkin was perfectly placed. Meanwhile, Tammy and Andrea shared a quiet moment behind the scenes, reflecting on their own journey. Tangy, having shed hundreds of pounds and embraced a new sense of independence, marveled at the surreal turn of events. "It's strange," she admitted softly. "Life feels lighter, but the emotions, they're heavier than ever." Andrea squeezed her hand. "You're navigating it beautifully, Tam. And your bond with Amy, it's healing, even if slowly." Tammy nodded, a sense of gratitude washing over her. The path to reconciliation was ongoing, but the progress was undeniable. As guests began to arrive, the energy shifted. Family, friends, and loved ones gathered, taking in the mix of macabre decor and celebratory touches. Cameras captured each reaction: the awe of the children at pumpkin displays, the smiles of friends reunited after months apart, and the unspoken anticipation of witnessing a wedding shaped by perseverance, love, and personal growth. Amy's mother, siblings, and select extended family members were present, their expressions a mix of pride, curiosity, and hope. When Amy walked down the aisle, her heart swelled with emotion. Brian's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the world beyond the ornate haunted venue ceased to exist. Tammy, seated nearby with Andrea, felt an unexpected surge of warmth. Despite past conflicts, watching her sister take this monumental step was a reminder that love and family could endure beyond disagreements. For all the years of tension, rivalry, and heartbreak, there remained a deep, unbreakable bond, a testament to the complexities of sibling relationships. The ceremony itself was a delicate blend of tradition and personality. Haunted elements, the flickering lanterns, subtle cobwebs, and eerie music interwove with heartfelt vows, laughter, and tears. Amy's words to Brian resonated with authenticity and vulnerability, promises to support, cherish, and grow together, acknowledging the trials they had both faced. Brian's response mirrored the same depth, expressing love and commitment not just to Amy, but to the family they were building together. As they exchanged rings and shared their first kiss as husband and wife, a sense of closure and new beginnings permeated the atmosphere. Guests cheered, children danced, and cameras captured every authentic reaction. Tammy and Andrea shared a quiet embrace, a silent acknowledgement of the past, the present, and the hope for the future. It was a moment of collective healing, of recognition that while life had thrown challenges their way, perseverance, love, and mutual respect could transform even the most fractured relationships. The evening faded into celebration. Music played, laughter echoed, and the scent of autumn mingled with candlelight. Amy and Brian danced among family and friends, while Tammy and Andrea shared a quiet dance of their own. The sisters' journey, filled with weight loss struggles, personal growth, conflict, reconciliation, and triumph, was distilled into these fleeting yet profound moments. They had weathered storms, faced their fears, and emerged stronger, individually and together. By the end of the night, as stars dotted the sky over Dixon, Kentucky, the sisters sat side by side in quiet reflection. Gage and Glenn slept nearby, exhausted but happy. Amy leaned her head against Tammy's shoulder, feeling the weight of past grievances lift slightly. "We made it, Tam," she whispered. Tammy smiled, a mix of pride, relief, and hope in her eyes. "Yeah, we did. And this is just the beginning." In that serene moment, the Slatten sisters understood that life's challenges were ongoing, but resilience, love, and the willingness to grow together could redefine even the deepest rifts. The camera faded out on the two sisters, side by side, ready to embrace the unknown, fortified by the lessons of their past and the promise of the future. Season 8 of 1,000-Pound Sisters was not just a story of weight loss or drama. It was a chronicle of growth, family, and the enduring power of sisterhood. The weeks after Amy's Halloween wedding were a mix of bliss, adjustment, and reflection. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but the atmosphere in the Slatten household shifted. Amy and Brian settled into a rhythm as husband and wife, navigating the joys and challenges of married life, parenthood, and Amy's pregnancy. Their days began with quiet morning rituals, Gage and Glenn clambering into bed for snuggles, Amy sipping coffee while Brian read the morning news, and soft music playing in the background. These moments of peace were a balm after months of stress and tension. Tammy and Andrea also found new routines. Life after Tammy's incredible weight loss had transformed her in ways that were both visible and profound. She was stronger, more agile, and brimming with self-confidence. But she had also discovered emotional growth she hadn't anticipated, learning patience, self-compassion, and the complexities of forgiveness. Despite lingering friction with Amy, Tammy recognized the power of supporting her sister from afar and celebrating her milestones without interference. The sisters began communicating more intentionally. Short, careful messages replaced previous arguments, and moments of shared laughter became more frequent than not. While they weren't entirely healed, there was a visible commitment to mending their bond. Amy, juggling wedding memories, pregnancy, and daily life, began to appreciate the importance of patience and perspective. She reached out to Tammy not just as a sister, but as a fellow survivor of challenges that only they could understand. Amy's pregnancy became a focal point of hope and joy. The household buzzed with preparations for a new life, from nursery decorations to baby showers. Gage and Glenn eagerly assisted in selecting tiny clothes and toys, their laughter echoing through the halls. Amy's anticipation blended excitement with nervousness. She worried about the demands of pregnancy and motherhood, but also felt empowered by the love and support surrounding her. Brian remained a steadfast presence, ensuring she never felt alone. Tammy, despite physical limitations from prior surgeries, found ways to contribute. She crafted handmade gifts for the baby, planned family outings, and shared her experiences with health and wellness to guide Amy through her pregnancy safely. Andrea's presence offered both emotional and practical support, solidifying a sense of stability in Tammy's life that she hadn't felt in years. Family gatherings became a reflection of change. Past arguments and misunderstandings lingered as memories, but they no longer dominated interactions. Instead, laughter, storytelling, and shared meals became central. Chris, Misty, and Amanda observed the evolving dynamic, noting the subtle but powerful ways the sisters were rebuilding trust. The older siblings occasionally mediated small disputes, ensuring minor disagreements didn't spiral out of control. The show's cameras captured every intimate moment, the quiet smiles over morning coffee, the nervous laughter during pregnancy checkups, the playful banter over home renovations, and the gentle admonitions to children to behave. These moments weren't dramatic, but they were deeply human, highlighting the day-to-day realities of healing, growth, and family connection. Amy continued her vlogging and wellness projects. She shared insights on motherhood, self-care, and managing conflict in familial relationships. Her transparency inspired fans, many of whom related to her struggles and triumphs. Tammy, in turn, participated in online discussions about post-weight loss life, relationships, and personal growth. Together, they crafted a narrative that balanced authenticity with optimism, showing that while challenges were inevitable, resilience and love could prevail. As the season progressed, subtle hints of unresolved tension occasionally emerged. Old habits died slowly. Amy would sometimes express frustration over Tammy's independence, and Tammy occasionally reacted defensively when Amy questioned her choices. Yet, these moments were brief, often followed by apologies, reflections, and mutual understanding. The sisters were learning that reconciliation was a process, not a single event. By the finale, the family's evolution was evident. The Slatten household radiated warmth, hope, and progress. Amy's pregnancy continued to bring joy, Tammy and Andrea's relationship flourished, and the sisters found new ways to connect that honored both their individuality and shared history. Season 8 of 1,000 Pounds Sisters had transformed from a story of conflict into a nuanced portrayal of healing, family, and resilience, a testament to the enduring power of sisterhood even after years of struggle. The arrival of winter brought a new rhythm to the Slatten household. Snow dusted the streets of Dixon, Kentucky, and the chill in the air made the warm glow of the home even more inviting. Inside, Amy's pregnancy had progressed, and the physical changes were evident, but so was her growing confidence. She moved with purpose, attending prenatal appointments, managing her home, and still finding time to bond with Gage and Glenn. Brian remained steadfast, balancing work and domestic responsibilities with patience and humor, always offering Amy quiet support in moments of uncertainty. Tammy, meanwhile, embraced the slower pace that winter allowed. After months of rigorous routines and medical follow-ups, she enjoyed cozy mornings with Andrea, sipping tea and reflecting on the year's transformations. The couple had grown closer, their shared laughter contrast to the earlier tumult of Tammy's life. Despite the lingering tension with Amy, Tammy discovered that distance could sometimes foster understanding, giving her space to appreciate her sister's choices without judgment. Family dinners became a focal point of stability. The children's laughter echoed alongside clinking cutlery and soft conversation, while Amy and Tammy carefully navigated old wounds. Misty and Amanda occasionally offered insight during these meals, gently steering dialogue toward empathy and shared experiences. Even Chris, who often acted as the reluctant mediator, found that observing rather than intervening sometimes led to more genuine reconciliation. Amy's preparations for motherhood included creating a nurturing environment for her new baby. She decorated the nursery in soft pastels, hung whimsical art, and meticulously organized tiny clothes and essentials. Gage and Glenn excitedly participated, feeling a sense of ownership and anticipation for their sibling. Brian helped wherever possible, assembling furniture and offering reassurance when Amy worried about the coming months of sleepless nights and new responsibilities. Tammy contributed by crafting personalized gifts, sewing small blankets, and writing heartfelt letters to the baby. Her attention to detail reflected both her creativity and her desire to remain connected to Amy despite their occasional disagreements. Andrea encouraged Tammy to maintain this supportive presence, emphasizing the value of family bonds even amidst conflict. The season highlighted quiet victories as much as dramatic moments. Amy successfully balanced pregnancy symptoms with daily responsibilities, often pausing to meditate, journal, or take walks with the children. Tammy continued her wellness journey, attending follow-up appointments, experimenting with new healthy recipes, and documenting her experiences to inspire others. Their individual growth reinforced the broader message of the season. Healing was ongoing, incremental, and deeply personal. Cameras captured the subtleties of daily life, the shared smiles over breakfast, gentle teasing during chores, and moments of reflection by the fireplace. These scenes underscored the humanity of the sisters, portraying them as real women navigating complex emotions, responsibilities, and aspirations. The audience glimpsed both vulnerability and strength, witnessing the nuanced interplay of past grievances and present reconciliation. Amy and Tammy began to find common ground in parenting philosophies. While disagreements remained, they increasingly approached conversations with patience. For example, during a shared outing to a local park, Amy guided Gage and Glenn on how to play safely, while Tammy offered encouragement and lighthearted advice. Their interactions were punctuated with laughter, playful banter, and the occasional eye roll, signaling progress in their relationship. The family's commitment to health remained central. Amy continued her prenatal workouts under medical guidance, while Tammy experimented with new exercises suited to her post-weight loss body. Both sisters shared their journeys online, offering fans insights into sustainable wellness and emotional resilience. Through these efforts, the narrative emphasized that transformation extended beyond physical appearance. It encompassed mental fortitude, self-awareness, and the cultivation of supportive relationships. Season 8 also delved into the emotional layers of reconciliation. In private moments, Amy reflected on her past frustrations, acknowledging the moments she had judged Tammy harshly. Tammy, in turn, recognized her own impatience and the need to respect Amy's autonomy. These reflections were rarely dramatic but carried profound weight, illustrating that true healing required introspection and empathy. As the season drew toward the holiday months, anticipation for the new baby infused the household with excitement. Decorations, family gatherings, and shared traditions brought warmth, joy, and a renewed sense of unity. Despite past conflicts, Amy and Tammy began to embrace a vision of family that was both resilient and adaptable, one where love and growth coexisted with imperfection and challenge. The closing episodes of Part 12 emphasized continuity and hope. Amy, Tammy, and their families navigated the interplay of everyday responsibilities and monumental life changes with grace and humor. Pregnancy milestones, wellness achievements, and moments of laughter reinforced that the journey of transformation was ongoing, layered, and deeply human. The Slatens were no longer defined solely by conflict. Instead, they were a portrait of resilience, growth, and the enduring bonds of sisterhood. Winter gradually gave way to early spring, and with it came a renewed sense of energy within the Slaten household. Amy's pregnancy progressed steadily, and each day brought new physical and emotional milestones. The morning sun streamed through the nursery windows, casting golden light over carefully arranged toys and a mobile spinning gently above the crib. Amy moved around the room with careful deliberation, occasionally pausing to rest her hand on her growing belly, feeling the subtle flutter of life within. Gage and Glenn were enthusiastic little assistants, chattering excitedly as they helped their mother arrange soft blankets and line up stuffed animals. Their laughter was infectious, blending with a gentle hum of morning activity. Brian followed Amy quietly, offering support when needed and sharing in her excitement. He marveled at the transformation Amy had undergone, both physically and emotionally, and silently promised to remain a steady presence through the challenges ahead. Tammy, on her own journey, continued to revel in her post-weight loss independence. With Andrea by her side, she explored activities she had once deemed impossible. Morning walks had become a ritual, and she often challenged herself with small adventures, short hikes, grocery trips without relying on a scooter, and even planning social gatherings with friends she hadn't seen in years. Her confidence radiated, not just in how she carried herself, but in the way she interacted with others, warm, approachable, and grounded in self-awareness. The sisters' relationship remained a work in progress. Though the rift of previous seasons still lingered, small gestures hinted at reconciliation. During shared family meals, they exchanged smiles and gentle jokes, the tension between them softening with each passing day. Misty and Amanda occasionally mediated, gently steering conversations toward understanding and common ground. Even Chris, who had once felt the weight of being a mediator, observed these interactions with cautious optimism, recognizing the subtle yet meaningful progress. Amy's preparation for motherhood became increasingly immersive. She attended prenatal classes, practiced breathing exercises, and maintained a journal documenting her hopes, fears, and reflections. Each entry revealed a layered inner life, the vulnerability of impending change, the excitement of building a new life, and the deep-seated desire to break generational cycles of stress and neglect. Tammy watched from the sidelines, offering advice, encouragement, and sometimes playful critiques, carefully balancing her role as supportive sister without overstepping boundaries. The household also became a hub of creativity and learning. Amy organized story time for the boys, incorporating educational activities into daily routines, while Tammy and Andrea experimented with healthy recipes in the kitchen, laughing at culinary mishaps and celebrating small victories. Their collective energy transformed the home into a space of warmth, learning, and growth, a contrast to the chaos of previous years. Spring outings became a highlight of the season. On sunny afternoons, the family ventured to local parks, nature trails, and community events. Gage and Glenn delighted in playgrounds and open fields, while Amy and Brian marveled at the ease with which Tammy navigated spaces she had once found inaccessible. Cameras captured these moments candidly, a hug shared between sisters, a quiet laugh over a spilled snack, a proud glance exchanged between mother and father. These small, seemingly mundane instances conveyed the profound depth of change and resilience. Amy's wedding memories lingered, shaping her present decisions. The Halloween celebration of her marriage to Brian remained a testament to her determination to celebrate love on her own terms. While Tammy had been absent from the festivities, The sisters found ways to honor one another through mutual respect and subtle gestures, signaling that even amidst lingering tension, bonds could be nurtured. Weight loss journeys continued to be central to both sisters' identities. Amy maintained a balanced diet and participated in guided exercises suitable for her pregnancy, while Tammy incorporated strength and mobility training into her daily routines. Both sisters documented progress, offering reflections on setbacks and triumphs, demonstrating to viewers that transformation was as much emotional and mental as it was physical. Moments of reflection were interspersed with challenges. Amy sometimes felt overwhelmed by the demands of impending motherhood, the responsibilities of her children, and the pressures of public attention. Tammy experienced similar stresses as she navigated a new relationship, continued health goals, and the complexities of sisterhood. Yet, in private moments, they confided in one another, sharing fears and offering support. It was in these moments that the true depth of their bond, resilient despite tension, became evident. By the close of Part 13, the Slatten household was a portrait of transformation, love, and resilience. Amy's anticipation of motherhood, Tammy's pursuit of independence, and the gradual mending of sisterly bonds created a layered narrative of growth. Challenges persisted, as they always would, but the sisters approached them with newfound empathy, understanding, and determination, setting the stage for the continuing evolution of their extraordinary lives. Spring deepened, and the Slatten home was filled with a quiet hum of preparation. Amy's pregnancy had reached a stage where every movement, every flutter, seemed monumental. She often sat in the living room with a warm blanket draped over her legs, gently rocking back and forth as she cradled her growing belly. Gage and Glenn sat nearby, sometimes trying to copy their mother, mimicking the motion with stuffed animals. Their laughter echoed through the rooms, a reminder that joy could coexist even amid lingering tension. Brian remained steadfast, balancing excitement with pragmatism. He helped Amy organize the nursery, unpacking boxes, assembling furniture, and carefully placing items in their designated spots. "We'll make it perfect," he whispered, brushing a stray strand of hair from Amy's forehead. "For you, for the kids, for the little one." Amy smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility lessened by his calm presence. His support allowed her moments of reflection, moments where she could focus not on chaos, but on the small victories of the day. Tammy's life had become a rhythm of health, self-discovery, and love. Andrea often accompanied her on long morning walks, exploring streets and parks Tammy had once only dreamed of visiting. The transformation was remarkable, not only in body, but in spirit. Each step she took was a quiet rebellion against the limitations she had lived under for years. And yet, despite her personal victories, the strain between her and Amy lingered in small, uncomfortable moments. Words were measured, interactions brief, and unspoken resentments hovered like shadows, waiting for clarity. The sisters' eventual conversations were delicate and fraught with emotion. One afternoon, in the sunlit kitchen, Amy brought up the tension. "Tam," she began softly, "I know things have been messy between us." Tammy paused, rolling her chair closer to the counter. Her eyes, bright and wary, met Amy's. "Yeah," she said slowly. "It's been rough." A pause lingered, heavy with unspoken apologies and pride. "I want us to work on it," Amy continued. "For me, for the boys, for us. I don't want this to be permanent." Tammy exhaled, a mixture of relief and hesitation. "Me neither. Sometimes I feel like I'm stepping into a storm," she admitted, voice trembling slightly. Family gatherings became tentative exercises in reconciliation. Misty, Amanda, and Chris facilitated moments that were both awkward and heartwarming. They encouraged shared meals, joint activities, and even playful competitions that reminded the sisters of bonds that had survived years of strain. In these moments, laughter returned, sometimes hesitant, sometimes spontaneous, but always a sign that healing was slowly taking root. Amy's wedding preparations for Brian remained a focal point. Despite Tammy's absence from the main planning, Amy often reflected on the memories they had shared, drawing strength from past triumphs. The haunted venue, chosen carefully to reflect their love story, was beginning to take shape. Decorations were assembled, the guest list finalized, and the wedding party rehearsed. Even minor mishaps became sources of humor as Amy and Brian navigated the chaos with patience and smiles. Tammy's role, though limited in the wedding, had shifted towards subtle support. She sent gifts, offered advice on logistics, and occasionally participated in pre-wedding rituals. Her gestures, small as they were, hinted at a willingness to rebuild bridges. Observers might have seen a divide, but those living it knew that reconciliation was rarely immediate. It was gradual, forged in moments of shared vulnerability and mutual respect. The Slatten siblings' health journeys continued to intertwine with family dynamics. Amy carefully monitored her diet, mindful of both her pregnancy and her long-term wellness goals. Tammy engaged in regular workouts, often involving Andrea, friends, or family members. The sisters occasionally shared tips, recipes, or motivational mantras, recognizing that their personal victories were stronger when acknowledged by loved ones. Outside the home, daily life brought challenges and triumphs. Grocery trips, doctor appointments, and school runs for Gage and Glenn tested patience, planning, and coordination. Yet each challenge became a reminder of the resilience that defined the Slattens. Moments of frustration were tempered by laughter, small acts of kindness, and an underlying commitment to family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the sisters shared a quiet moment on the porch. Amy held a cup of tea, Tammy cradled hers, and the boys played nearby. Words were minimal, but the silence spoke volumes. For the first time in months, the weight of past arguments seemed lighter. A shared glance, a tentative smile, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. The foundation of sisterhood, though battered, remained unbroken. As Part 14 closes, the Slattens are poised on the threshold of transformation. Amy's pregnancy, Tammy's self-discovery, and the slow healing of familial bonds hint at new chapters of growth, understanding, and resilience. The journey ahead remains uncertain, but the sisters have discovered the power of persistence, love, and mutual respect, preparing them for the pivotal moments yet to come. The morning sun spilled into the Slatten home with a quiet brilliance, as if celebrating the new beginnings quietly unfolding within its walls. Amy stirred in her bedroom, gently rubbing her belly, feeling the little kicks and rolls that reminded her that life was constantly moving forward. The pregnancy had brought a rhythm, a sense of purpose, and even amidst past chaos, a profound hope. She smiled, thinking of the family she had fought so hard to nurture, not just Gage and Glenn, but the baby yet to arrive, and the fragile yet resilient bond with her sister Tammy. Tammy, for her part, had grown into a steadier version of herself. The months since the last blowout with Amy had forced reflection, patience, and the realization that pride could never outweigh family. She rolled through the kitchen, a bowl of fruit in hand, catching Amy's eye with a nod of understanding. It was simple, yet monumental, a silent acknowledgement of healing, a pact that some divides could be bridged. Andrea appeared from the other side of the room, linking hands with Tammy, smiling at the subtle shift. The warmth of love and support radiated from them, offering a counterbalance to old wounds. Family celebrations took on a new rhythm. There were small victories and significant milestones, doctor visits marked with laughter and reassurance, prenatal classes with playful banter, and weekend strolls where Gage and Glenn clung to both sisters' hands. Amy taught the boys how to anticipate the arrival of their sibling, filling the house with stories and excitement, while Tammy shared tales of courage, perseverance, and the meaning of personal transformation. Together, they wove a tapestry of shared experiences that began to mend old scars. Amy's wedding with Brian arrived in a whirlwind of costumes, decorations, and a haunted house transformed into a festive, eerie, and heartwarming venue. The energy was electric, with friends, family, and curious onlookers adding to the buzz. Tammy, though not a central figure in the planning, watched quietly from the side, sending occasional supportive glances to Amy. Each smile, each soft acknowledgement, felt like a stitch repairing the fabric of their relationship. Brian and Amy exchanged vows in a ceremony that balanced their quirks, love, and the unique charm that defined them. Gage and Glenn were the perfect little attendants, their innocence a reminder of why family mattered more than grudges. In the quiet aftermath of the wedding, the Slatens gathered in the living room. Candles flickered, the faint scent of pumpkin and spice filled the air, and laughter mingled with the soft hum of contentment. Amy cradled her belly, Tammy nearby, Andrea by her side, and Brian holding Amy's hand. Conversations meandered from lighthearted teasing to reflections on the journey that had brought them here. The past, the arguments, the tears, the isolation, felt present but softened, no longer sharp enough to cut. They were part of the story, but not the defining chapter. The following months were a rhythm of preparation, anticipation, and quiet growth. Amy immersed herself in motherhood, prenatal exercises, and nurturing her relationship with Brian. Tammy continued her journey of self-care, fitness, and love with Andrea, embracing the fullness of a life once constrained by weight and conflict. They shared small, ordinary moments, coffee at dawn, playful arguments over recipes, evening walks, and heartfelt confessions that reminded them that sisterhood was not about perfection, but persistence, forgiveness, and mutual respect. Finally, the day arrived when the newest member of the Slatten family came into the world. Tears, laughter, and a collective sense of wonder filled the delivery room. Amy held the baby close, feeling a love so intense it seemed to overflow. Gage and Glenn watched with wide eyes, learning lessons of patience, care, and the boundless possibilities of family love. Tammy, standing nearby with Andrea, embraced the moment fully, her heart swelling with pride and relief. The years of tension, arguments, and misunderstandings did not vanish, but they were overshadowed by the magnitude of creation, growth, and unity. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and gold, the Slatten family sat together, reflecting, laughing, and dreaming. Amy whispered to Tammy, "We made it, sis. Through all the mess, all the fights, we made it." Tammy nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "Yeah," she replied softly. "And we'll keep making it." The camera might have panned away, leaving the world to wonder about the chaos behind closed doors, but for the Slatens, this was more than television drama. It was life, messy, complicated, beautiful, and ultimately triumphant. They had faced the storms of past grievances, personal struggles, and the pressures of public scrutiny. And they had emerged not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and connected in ways they had long forgotten were possible. Amy, Tammy, Brian, Andrea, Gage, Glenn, and the new baby together closed the chapter on conflict and opened the door to hope. The Slatten story, once defined by struggle and division, had become one of resilience, healing, and enduring family love. And as the night wrapped around their home, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by blood, history, and an unshakable sisterhood that had survived storms, distance, and time itself.